Welcome to the next edition of the Connor and Heffernan Show. My name is Mark. My co-host Montana is also here. We're gonna start things off with the NFL and talk a little contenders or pretenders for the top four teams in each conference. Take it away, man. What are your thoughts? Who do you think are your pretenders and who are your contenders?
Yeah, so first of all, I think any sport, no matter what it is, there's always teams that are ranked extremely high that are going to fizzle out, whether that be playoffs, whether that be towards the end of the season. Now, NFL wise, we're at the back half. We're at the back half of the season. So a lot of these top four teams will probably remain close to the top four, if not in the top four. But some of them are not going to look like a top four team once it's playoff time. For me, the contenders, the ones that are legit, the contenders in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, I will say this about the Dolphins. They've had a couple of games against higher ranked opponents where they have not shown up, but top to bottom, looking at both sides of the ball, this Miami team is dangerous, and I do think with a healthy Tua, they are going to look dangerous in the playoffs. We have not seen this Dolphins team with all of these pieces until now. This is the first time we've seen them. Obviously, anything could change the last couple of games, but if everyone goes into the playoffs healthy, this Miami team is top to bottom one of the best teams, if not the best team in the AFC. And then I've got the Ravens for the same exact reason. This team is stacked. Yes, you've got Lamar Jackson on offense, who is finally gotten, that man deserves to get paid. That man deserves, he is a top AFC, if not just NFL quarterback in total. He deserves to be paid. But we also, that defense, bro, that Baltimore defense, Baltimore is legit. So for me, the contenders in the AFC are the Ravens and the Dolphins. The pretenders, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are sitting currently at fourth. Here's what I'm going to say. For me, it's not that they're pretenders. It's just that I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to make it very far in the postseason. The fact that the Jaguars are even in fourth, yeah, they've looked decent the last couple of seasons, but the fact that this Jags team is in fourth, that's great. That's good for the fans. That's good for that team. I don't think they're going to go very far in the playoffs. And then I do have the Chiefs as my other AFC pretender for the reason of I just don't think they are as good as they have been. I don't think their offense is as good as it was last year. Their defense is better. Their defense is probably the best it's been in the Patrick Mahomes era, or at least one of the best defenses they've had in the Patrick Mahomes era. But I just don't think it's going to be enough, and I don't think they're going to make it very far in the playoffs. I think that the Chiefs are going to be an early exit this season. So for me, those are my contenders and pretenders in the AFC. What about you, bro? Do we have the same list, or are we looking a little bit different there?
I think a little bit different.
Sweet, let's hear it, bro. I'm excited to hear yours.
So my contenders so far are the Baltimore Ravens, and I actually kind of do like the Chiefs because they have made it far in the playoffs before. They've been there. They need to fix the receivers a little bit so they don't drop the ball. But I think they'll be right in the thick of things. My pretenders, all for the facts that you just laid out, the Dolphins. They haven't beat anybody good. And that has me worried come playoff time. They need to figure out how to beat someone with the over 500 record. And they haven't done that very much. And then the Jaguars, I think they're maybe a year or two away. But the fact that they are in this position right now, I think is huge down the road.
Agreed. It's huge to see them, the turnaround, because people were questioning the quarterback. People were questioning the direction that team was heading in, and now they're fourth in the AFC. So that's a huge place for them to be at, and that's a huge step in the right direction for a team like Jacksonville. But moving over to the NFC, for me, I think it's pretty clear. The contenders, Philadelphia Eagles. after beating the Chiefs in a really, really exciting matchup this last week, the Eagles look phenomenal. Jalen Hurts, there's been some talk, some doubt on him, and honestly, we've even talked about it. There's been some inconsistencies, but he looks really solid. That offense looks like they're on the same page. The defense, while it can be shaky at times, that Eagles defense is super solid and they are not going anywhere. This Eagles team has the best record in the NFC for a reason. This Eagles team is just a step above so many other teams in the NFC. One team they're not so much a step above, though, is the 49ers. The 49ers have been a team that have been consistently in the playoffs, been in a couple Super Bowls, lost all of them the last couple of go-rounds in the 2010s at least. But now I think that we have the most even 49ers team on both sides of the ball that we've ever had. And I think that that is going to translate come playoff time. I do think we are going to see, as long as health is a big factor, 49ers, health is a gigantic factor. But as long as they stay healthy, I do truly think that this is the best 49ers team that we have seen. And so for me, the contenders are pretty clear cut in the NFC. It's the Eagles and the 49ers. Going into pretenders, I've got to go with the Lions. The Lions are great, and I'm so excited that they're where they're at. But I do not think they are going to make it very far in the playoffs, and I think we're starting to see them fizzle out even before the playoffs start. I do think they are going to make the playoffs. I do think they're going to win a decent amount of the rest of their games and make the playoffs. But I don't think they're making it past the first round. I just don't. I don't think this Lions team is that team. And I think that a lot of people can agree. But still, I'm not hating on them because look at where they're at after where they were last season and the season before, and just the last 20 years. Like, even when they had Megatron, even when they had a pretty decent quarterback in Stafford, they weren't getting it done. This is the most they've gotten it done since those guys, and they've got a chance to get even more done than those guys could do. So it's huge and it's awesome to see, but I don't think it's just another team that's a step in the right direction. I don't think they're not a team that has fully arrived yet. And so I think that we're going to see that. And then I've got to say Dallas, for me, is a pretender, and they've been a pretender. And it doesn't matter if they're beating the Commanders. Okay? This is a team, and you made a great point. I want to backtrack just briefly to your point you made about the Dolphins that I also very more briefly made in the beginning. They have not had a lot of success against the actual contenders or the actual teams in the NFL that are known for giving you a good game. And the Cowboys are a team that's in a similar spot for me because, yeah, they whooped up on the Giants. That's awesome. But look at the Giants. The Giants have got whooped up on by the Raiders of all teams. And I'm a Raiders fan. I'm saying that as a Raiders fan. So, it is not the Cowboys. Yeah, they also whooped up on the Commanders on Thanksgiving Day. But at the same time, you see their holes even in those wins, and they are dropping a lot of the more important matchups. And I just do not think this Cowboys team is built to last. And I think that has been the case. Shout out to Dak, who honestly is playing pretty solid football. The team looks pretty decent. It's not like they're on a 3 or 4 or 5 game losing streak that's giving me any right to be saying this, but I just don't see it. So for me, my pretenders in the NFC have to be the Lions and the Cowboys. What about you, bro? Our list looking different in this conference as well?
I was just about to say, I'm surprised you didn't really touch on the NFC South at all. The NFC South is pretty bad. You could pretty much say that they're all pretenders in that division. Am I right? Unfortunately, one of those teams is, but I think all of our list is the same though. For my contenders, you obviously got to put Philadelphia and the 49ers up there. The 49ers have looked really good. Their offense is even more dangerous than it has been because they're actually utilizing Christian McCaffrey to his full potential. And Brock Purdy is looking pretty phenomenal in his second year under the helm of the 49ers. You look at pretenders, though, and I will throw the Cowboys in there as well. Again, they're in the same light as the Dolphins as far as not beating the good teams, but they're whooping up on all these bad teams. They need to find a way to get over the hump because when it comes to playoff time, they're not going to get very far. They may be a first or maybe a second round exit if lucky. So they got to get things figured out. I think a lot of that has to fall on Dak's play because you either see Dak Prescott playing really good or he's throwing 3 interceptions against a team that's literally in the playoff hunt too. So there's that. And then the Detroit Lions, I'm going to put them in the pretender category right now. We saw them lose to the Packers on Thanksgiving. Great performance by the Packers. It keeps them in the playoff hunt, but it kind of hurts the Lions and the fact of, okay, will they beat the good teams if they're losing to kind of these middle of the road NFL teams? So my contenders right now are the Eagles and the 49ers, pretenders, Cowboys, Lions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's very fair. I think it's the NFC is more clear cut than the AFC, if you ask me. I feel like the NFC is always, and like you said in the beginning of talking about the NFC, it's because we have divisions like the South. We have divisions that are just, we have divisions in the NFC that are pretty laughable. But with that, there are also teams in both conferences that are still in the hunt, that are still looking like they might get a spot. For you right now, talking, you can go AFC or NFC, you can go either or. Who do you think are teams? Give me a couple of teams that you think are in the playoff hunt that aren't there right now, but still have a shot to get a wild card.
I'm going to say this, and it's not just because I'm a homer or anything, but I'm going to bring up the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love is playing some great football right now. He is patient, and you've seen him develop over the course of the season. I think the Packers can potentially sneak in here down the road and get a playoff spot. And then looking at a team like, the Vikings, too, in the NFC. The Vikings, I think, can find their way in, too. They're my two teams that could potentially sneak into the playoffs here down the road in the NFC. You look at the AFC here, potentially Buffalo. Even though Buffalo has not played very well as of late, Buffalo has been in the playoffs the last several years. They could be a dangerous team. And then if the Bengals figure it out, maybe even the Bengals, or dare I say it, the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are playing some decent football right now, which is kind of crazy considering where they were just a few weeks ago. Trying to figure out what the hell Russell Wilson is doing or what the hell Sean Payton's doing. They're seeming to figure it out, and their defense is playing at a very high level right now. So, yeah, those are my teams that I think could potentially sneak in. Especially like with the Broncos side of things. If the Chiefs the receivers for the Chiefs keep dropping the passes that they are, and the Broncos stay hot, the Broncos have a legit chance of winning this division, which is, I don't think, anything that we could say like 10 weeks ago.
I mean, hey, I was wondering if you'd drop the Broncos in with it. I think for me, this is a team, it's hard because I'm a Raiders fan, so I don't want to give the Broncos any credit, but I do have to give them some credit because this is probably the first time this season we've been able to talk about them in a positive way, because they were on the brink of looking like a team that was going to get eliminated from contention and it was going to be out and there was going to be time to look to next season, and it's not the case. They are still alive. The Bengals are also still alive. Buffalo should be way higher up than they are. They shouldn't have to be still alive. They should just be already in the playoffs, but they're not. This has been a very roller coaster season for them, and I think honestly this is our last time seeing Diggs in a Buffalo jersey, guaranteed at least. I don't think it's guaranteed that he suits up for them next year. I think that this team, it's unfortunate because they do have a lot of talent on that team. They do have a really good squad, but there's just been a lot of factors that have been at play for that team. And so it's just looking like, yes, they could get in, but it's just looking like it's going to be a tough road, even if they do get in. And even if this Buffalo team makes it in, I don't have them getting much done. Even though they've fallen short the last couple of times they've made the playoffs, I don't even think they make it past a wild card this next go around. I think they'll be lucky to just get that wild card in, but I do think they will be a team that is going to make their way in and get that. Probably that last spot is going to be where they're at. But then looking over at the NFC, you're not a homer, honestly, because Green Bay looks nice. After that win against the Lions, beating the Lions, yes, the Lions, like we both kind of alluded to, are kind of fizzling out, but that's still a team that, I mean, don't forget, the Lions knocked Green Bay out of contention, out of being able to go in the playoffs and beat Aaron Rodgers in his last matchup against them. So I feel like this is a little bit of a revenge. I mean, this was like the flipping of the scripts. The Lions are in a good position now. They're being talked about as the top team in the NFC. Green Bay comes in and takes care of that. So Green Bay looks nice. Green Bay looks like a team that I think the Packers are going to get that. I think honestly, and maybe they make a push. If the Packers make the playoffs, that might be enough momentum, and Love might have enough experience because each game he looks better. For me, each game he looks more comfortable. He looks better with the offense. And so if they get a shot to go to the playoffs and he has enough time to keep building that by then, who knows, bro? Maybe the Packers are a sleeper team, not to win the Super Bowl or anything, but to make a little push and at least make it past the wild card. Why not?
You want to hear like a crazy stat?
Let's hear it.
So yesterday I was scrolling through Facebook and it was Aaron Rodgers in his first 11 starts as a Packer and then Jordan Love's. And they're eerily similar. Both players had 2,599 yards passing. Both had a 60% completion percentage. Aaron Rodgers had 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Meanwhile, Jordan Love has 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. They both have the same statistics through their first 11 games, minus a couple of differences here and there. I think that says something about the quarterback that Green Bay has right now, and Jordan Love is definitely starting to find his stride, and it's actually kind of cool to see.
I'm with you, man. I'm not even a Packers fan, and I think it's cool for the league to see this Packers team kind of find their new leader, because we saw Favre and then the transition into Rodgers, and now I think we're seeing the transition to Love, and that's just cool because that's a team that kind of has that dynasty of a quarterback that takes the helm and leads the team in the right direction. So shout out to the Packers, man. I'm rooting for them, bro, and I think they've got a really good shot at winning out and being a team that makes at least a wild card appearance. But moving on, we have a couple more NFL segments to go over. Next, we are going to look at a player that you called this last season. I don't remember what episode you called this. I did not. I don't think I disagreed, but I definitely did not have the same exact take that you had on it. But CJ Stroud, rookie quarterback for the Houston Texans. We talked about him before he was even on the field, officially taking his first NFL snap, asking the question, how good will he be? I think I said I think he'll be pretty good, but it'll take us some time to figure it out. And you said he was going to figure it out and he was going to be that guy, and he is. He is. The Texans look better than anyone could have imagined they would be. I think they're currently 6th in the AFC, and they have a really nice schedule for the rest of the season. So that is a team that I think, like it or not, you will see in the playoffs. And Stroud is putting up numbers. That dude is absolutely balling. So my question to you is CJ Stroud a legit NFL quarterback / is he a legit MVP candidate in your opinion?
I think he is. He's shown that he's a legit NFL quarterback, and he is well within the MVP consideration. I think when the season is done, he will at least get Rookie of the Year. Because man, he's done so well for this Texans organization. Like, he brought them from dead to now they're in the playoff hunt, which I don't think anybody could have, predicted. I don't care if you're a Texans fan or not. Like, nobody predicted the Texans being in this position where they are right now. You look at CJ Stroud's stats, though, and they're pretty damn good. 2,962 yards passing, 17 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And his regular season QBR is 60.5, which is 10th in the league. He's a top half quarterback in the NFL in his rookie year. And I think he's just going to continue to improve. Do I think he's going to win the MVP necessarily this year? No, because I do think there are other better players up there. But he's at least put himself in position to potentially win Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah, bro. I think he's locked that, man. Like, I love what again, you made the call before he even stepped on the field. And I think a lot of that had to do with what you said you saw, if I remember correctly, what you saw from college. And don't always see that transfer over. We don't always see, especially at the quarterback position, we see some quarterbacks that just absolutely ball out in college and it does not transfer to the NFL. Well, it did, and then some for him. And I think that it's a testament in his team's record. I'm a big guy with records, and I think how your team is doing as a whole, especially when the quarterback is the leader of the football team, your record and how you're doing outshines your stats. And his stats are freaking good. Like, his stats are incredible, as well as his leadership and their record. So this dude is a top 10 quarterback in the league easily. And as a rookie, you don't see that. You definitely don't see that as often as you would think. We see a lot of those quarterbacks that are highly drafted and highly sought after come into the league and either end up backups or they're just mid to low tier starters. And right off the bat, Stroud came in and showed that he was not. He has shown out incredibly. And again, for me, the record as well as his stat, it speaks for itself. He is absolutely a legitimate MVP candidate. But I'm with you. There are players out there that have a better chance. And moving on to that, actually, my question to you is, at this point in the season, because again, we're in the back half, who is your clear-cut MVP winner? If the award was being given out today, who do you think would get it?
I'm going Christian McCaffrey. Because, for one, he stayed healthy all season long, and he's putting up really good numbers running the ball. He's even receiving the ball. Like, he's made a few really good catches out of the backfield, too. I think as far as everything goes, I think my clear-cut favorite is Christian McCaffrey right now. What about you?
No, that's a great pick. Christian McCaffrey that's a player that was in the wrong situation and got out, and his stats that he was putting up when he was in that situation in Carolina that were not incredible, they didn't go away. He's still balling out. He's just on a better team. And so shout out to him. Good to see that. I've got to go with Lamar Jackson for the
Good pick.
sole purpose that dude is, I just think people need to admit it. And it's, again, the talking heads aren't going to ever give Lamar Jackson the respect he deserves, but that's because they're just never, a lot of those takes are pretty ridiculous. But Lamar Jackson, in my personal opinion, is one of the best, if not the best quarterbacks when it comes to being able to run and being able to throw. There was all that talk about him being a running back. All the disrespect people were saying he wasn't able to throw the ball. That dude has an arm. If you watch his games, that dude has an arm.
He can gun it.
He can absolutely gun it. And I'm going to say it right now. I think he's going to win it. I do truly think if we were giving it out right now, I'd give it to him. But especially by the end of the season, if he closes the season out like I think he will, I think it's his award. I think it's Lamar Jackson's award to either win or lose, because I think that he just has the most potential to close the season out the best statistically, especially because he does it all. He can run it and he can gun it. So I got to go Lamar Jackson, but Christian McCaffrey's a great pick. And I think between the two, it's a good call that one of them is going to be a finalist. If not, both of them are going to be finalists for MVP when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Lamar Jackson is a really good pick by you, because he was also, I was about to say him, and then I just thought about Christian McCaffrey a little bit. But yeah, Lamar Jackson's having himself an incredible year. Not only is he really fast when he runs the football, he's putting up really good yards throwing the football too. He is a good two-way quarterback. And I think we may be seeing, like what we predicted here, a 1-2 MVP battle at the end of the year, which will be kind of cool if that transpires if both players stay healthy.
That's the health, bro. That's exactly what you just, we got to throw that word around, unfortunately, a lot on this show, because I feel like a lot of these players that we like to talk about, and that anyone likes to talk about, and that are really up there statistic-wise, we see a lot of injuries take them down. So obviously hoping that health stays good, but if it does, I do think we're looking at some finalists for MVP. Moving on to our last NFL topic of the show. Talking the Jets. No, we're not talking about Aaron Rodgers coming back and leading the Jets to the Super Bowl, because at this point, I think they're 4-7. Is that their record for something?
Yeah, I think they're all but out of the playoff contention now.
That's it. They're behind the Raiders. I know they're I think a spot or two behind the Raiders, so they're definitely out. So Jets are not going to make anything happen this season, but Aaron Rodgers is projected to come back healthy, is projected to be ready to go. And with that, the Jets are rumored to be very much going full steam ahead towards a trade for Devonte Adams in the offseason to reunite Rodgers and Adams. My question to you, I mean, you know this better than anybody else, bro. You watch this firsthand as a fan of the Packers. Should the Jets do this? Does it make sense for the Jets? Does it make sense for Adams? Does it make sense for everybody involved? I know my answer, but I want to know what yours is.
I think it makes some sense. If, for one, Rodgers stays healthy, I think that Rodgers-Devonte Adams combo is very dangerous. I saw it firsthand when they were playing for the Packers, and the first few years under Matt LaFleur, that was one of the top quarterback wide receiver combos in the league at the time. I mean, you had Devonte Adams up there in terms of top yardage amongst wide receivers. So I think it does make a little bit of sense as far as the future of the Jets. I'm kind of curious to see how that translates, though, because the Jets organization as a whole is not used to any sort of success whatsoever. And the question of it, everything would be, does Devonte Adams want to go into that situation? Yeah, he's reunited with Rodgers, but they're possibly not going to be in the playoffs. Maybe Devonte Adams wants to go to organization that's in contention for the playoffs year after year. So does it make some sense? Yes, but in the same instance, no. If that makes any sense. I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on this whole situation. Do you think it makes sense for the Jets?
I think it definitely makes sense for Rodgers. And Rodgers is a guy that you've seen him bring a lot of the guys from Green Bay with him to New York. Like, he likes his people with him. He likes to have familiar faces, and who doesn't? That makes perfect sense. He has that pull. He can call you up and say, hey, come, I want you to come play in New York with me. And you probably will. He has that pull, especially if you played on a Super Bowl team or a playoff team. He has that pull. What I will say about it is it makes great sense for the Jets. It makes great sense for Rodgers. It makes great sense for everybody on that side. On Devonte Adams' side, I don't want to sound like a homer because, again, this is my turn to have my chance to be a little bit of one, but I think he stays a Raider. I think if the Raiders, now it is going to depend on who they hire officially as head coach. They've got an incredible interim in right now, and if they hire him, which I think they will, I think Adams stays. Or if they hire just a coach with a solid resume that looks great, I think Adams remains a Raider. And I think looking at his attitude change already shows me that he's definitely not out 100% of Vegas. If we still had McDaniels, if we still had that terrible head coach, that terrible situation, I would be the one saying Adams needs to get out because it's not a good place for him to be. But I think we're turning in the right direction as an organization. And so as long as we get the right head coach, we get the right quarterback, if we get these things in place, I think Adams stays a Raider. So I don't want to be a homer. I kind of am with that take because, again, I'm a Raiders guy. I don't want to lose Adams. With the right setup, we would have that would make perfect sense. But I can absolutely see a trade happening, something happening, and maybe he leaves. But for me, it makes great sense for the Jets. It makes great sense for Rodgers. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for Adams, but I also don't think he stays a Raider for sure in the offseason. Even if he doesn't go to the Jets, I don't think it's not a lock he stays a Raider.
I've also heard things that Devonte Adams potentially getting back to Green Bay, which is a situation that I could see too. And if Green Bay were to pull something like that off, I think it would be huge because you got young receivers like Christian Watson, you got Romeo Doubs, like you've got a pretty decent young receiving core in Green Bay. And I think adding a veteran, if it were to happen, like Devonte Adams back, I think that's all. It's all going to boost that Packers organization to the level where they should be. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Devonte as we approach the offseason. We've still got a lot of season to go. But yeah, I do like what you said as far as his attitude change. Because when McDaniels was the head coach, it was a toxic environment in Las Vegas, very toxic. They weren't playing good football. Devonte Adams was unhappy with his position with that organization, and that seemed to change a little bit with their interim coach. But I do not think he's going to stay a Raider through the offseason, whether it be going to the Jets, Packers, wherever it may be. It'll be interesting to cover for sure.
And like you said, time will definitely tell. And I'm just trying to be a little too hopeful, thinking he'll stay a Raider. I definitely know there will be teams that will be looking into obtaining him because who wouldn't want that dude on their team? And if he goes back and becomes a Packer, that would be probably the most interesting storyline, and that would be a great setup for that team. So whatever ends up happening, we'll follow that story as it comes. But we're going to move on into a little college football, and we've got a lot of Husker football to go into. Unfortunately, it's not as much positive as we were hoping for, but we still have a lot to go into. But before we go into that, we have a little bit of just college football to go into. And the first thing we're going to look at is obviously it's same format as it has been with the playoffs, but starting next season, it is going into a 12-team playoff format. So my question to you is, within 1 through 12, are there any teams, even if it's number 6, 7, whatever, are there any teams that are looking like they'll be right on the outside of the college football playoffs that you think would win it all if they were in? If we were in a 12-team format, would any of these teams, especially 8 through 12, would any of those teams shake it up?
If I were to say any teams that are bound to shake it up if it was a 12-team playoff possibly, I'm going to put Alabama and Oregon up there. Both of those teams, like Alabama is starting to figure things out. Milroe is starting to play decent football at quarterback for Alabama. And then you look at Oregon, really good offensively, really good defensively. So those are my two. Hell, you can even throw Texas in there. Texas is looking really good right now, too. Quinn Ewers is back. I believe they won last night. Am I wrong?
Texas, yeah, they did.
They walloped Texas Tech. So they're looking good. They're sitting at 11-1, and they're just on the outside looking in at number 7 right now in the playoff rankings. That may change as we approach Tuesday night, but like Florida State is up at 5 right now. They're 11-0, but they just lost their starting quarterback, who was a potential Heisman hopeful, to a season-ending knee injury. I don't think Florida State's going to shake anything up. Missouri is sitting at number 9 right now in the playoff. They just walloped Arkansas. They're 10-2. There's a few teams in here when it comes to a 12-team format that could really do some serious shaking up as far as potentially weeding their way through the field and potentially winning a national championship. I'm excited for the 12-team playoff next year.
Me too, bro. I really like that format. I really like expanding it because 4 just is not enough. It's never seemed like enough. And so expanding it to 12, I feel like is the perfect amount of teams. I really like all the teams you mentioned. They're all teams that could absolutely shake it up. A team that I think always will shake it up as long as this 12-team format exists is Alabama. Because Alabama, it's for me, Alabama has always, ever since this playoff format has existed, they have been a team that whenever they've been a legitimate contender, they come alive in the playoffs. And if we're seeing them not in the top 4, but lingering in that top 10 consistently, they will be in the playoffs year after year, just like they have been. And I think we'll see that team rally and really put together what they need to do in the playoffs like we have in previous seasons. So a team that I think will always be a factor, as long as they have that momentum and they have Saban, I think Alabama will be a team to watch. But this season specifically, if you're asking me 12 format this season right now, I've got to go with number 11 Penn State. I think that Penn State would absolutely be a team that would pull it off. And that would be, again, I love that we are going to see teams that are lower, like from 8 to 12. One of those teams could win a championship going forward. And I really, really like that. I really like the rolling the dice feel of that. And so for me, I think if it was a 12-team format, I think Penn State would be a team that I would absolutely be rolling the dice on, and I would call them winning it all. It would be an upset, but I think they'd be able to pull it off. So I'm excited, bro. And we very well might see our favorite team in this 12-team format sooner than later. Obviously, we're going to get to them next. We've got a lot of Husker football to cover. But before we go over that, as we record our episode today, there is a huge Big Ten matchup going on this weekend, and it is Ohio State versus Michigan. Currently, Ohio State is sitting at second undefeated, and Michigan is sitting at third undefeated. First of all, who do you think is going to pull off the win? I guess we'll start there. Who do you think wins this matchup? And second of all, even if, I mean, it's inevitable, whichever team loses, do you still think they will find their way in the college football playoffs? Or will they get bumped down by a team? What are your thoughts?
So as far as who's going to win this game, I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes this morning. I think they pull it off this afternoon. Kyle McCord for Ohio State is playing some pretty high-level football right now. And I think their offense is just a little bit more prolific than Michigan. So it's going to be another challenge for that Michigan Wolverine defense. The defense is solid, but I don't think they're going to have enough to keep up with the likes of Marvin Harrison or Travion Henderson today. I think Ohio State wins a close one. Give me the Buckeyes 31-27.
I like that. I'm with you. Little different score, but I have the same team pulling it off. I think Ohio State has proven that they're that team. I think that they very well could be the national champion this season. I don't want to make a call right now, but they look scary. They look like that team. And the fact that they've held that consistently, because we've seen Ohio State teams fizzle out. We've seen Ohio State teams drop games that they shouldn't drop. That's not happened this season, and it's not going to happen this weekend. This wouldn't be a game where you'd scratch your head and be like, how'd they lose that? Because Michigan is that team. Michigan is one of the top teams in the Big Ten and college football. I've got to give it to Ohio State, but I am going to spread the margin out just a little bit. I'm going to give it a full touchdown spread. I'm going to go 28-21, Ohio State on top. And again, I think Ohio State is proving that they very well could be that team, but time will tell. Unfortunately, the jersey that you are currently wearing is a team that is done. We're wrapped up their season yesterday on Friday, and so it is time to officially transition and talk some Husker football, starting specifically with yesterday's game, Nebraska versus Iowa. I have one question for you first, and that is probably the most important one of the whole segment. Were you at the game?
I was at the game, yes.
Okay,
the stadium was really loud too. It was a fun experience.
Give us the experience, bro. What was that game like? Was this your second game of the season?
This was my second game, yeah.
Yeah.
The experience was good. I was surrounded by a bunch of Hawkeye fans. Some of them were really nice. Some of them were not so nice. But that's what you get on a rivalry weekend. You're going to have some people that are going to pretty much come after your throat. But as far as the game day experience, I think it was good. Nebraska played good for a large part of that game. Chubba Purdy had 2 turnovers. The interception, after we got the interception back, was definitely disheartening. It's hard to put it into words because Nebraska was right there. It looked like for a while Iowa was dead because they could not get anything going on offense at all that second half. They went into halftime up 10-7. Well, Nebraska came back. They didn't allow really anything throughout that second half up until that last drive. And the backup kicker for Iowa kicks the game-winning field goal, sends Iowa home with their 10th win and the trophy. It was in a way disheartening, but this Nebraska team showed toughness and grit all year long. Anytime adversity hit them, they always battled back in some way or fashion. We saw this team have 5 turnovers in a game and only lose by 3 points, which is a testament to their defense. Their offense has done just good enough in some games. And let me just add this in. In his last 2 stops as a head coach in college, his first years at those 2 schools had 2 wins combined. 2 wins combined. And they have 5 this year. And people may say, well, it's another losing season, yada, yada, yada. But there's a lot of people picking Nebraska 6-6, 5-7, somewhere in there. They need to find themselves a quarterback. And they may have that quarterback in Chubba Purdy. But I do think they need to go through the transfer portal and maybe find someone else. Because they do have a quarterback in the 2024 recruiting class, and Daniel Kalen out of Bellevue West, who I think will be a good football player. But they need to find someone with experience and someone who can take care of the ball better, because I think that's going to be huge for this program down the road, is they need to take care of the ball. If they take care of the ball in all of these games that they had multiple turnovers in, you're talking a difference between a 5-7 season and potentially 9-3, 10-2 season. Like, the margin for error is razor thin right now, especially when you got teams like USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon coming into the Big Ten next year. Because you already know Nebraska's going to be playing in a lot of these close games. They need to find a way to flip the script. And that all starts with not turning the damn ball over. We saw a more disciplined Nebraska team this year than any of the previous 5 teams under Frost. They didn't get penalized too often. They got penalized a few times yesterday, a lot of which were questionable. But they didn't get penalized a whole lot. Their defense was a top 15 defensive unit in the country. They did a lot of good things. I don't care what any other Nebraska fan has to say as far as there not being that many positives. The offensive line took strides throughout the year, which is something that we haven't seen. You know, there are positives you can pick out of a 5-7 season. And hell, there's still a chance that they could still find their way into a bowl game if there aren't enough 6-win teams this year. Which, at the moment, there are not. There are a lot of teams vying for that bowl bid right now. So, we may not be talking Nebraska being done. They may have one more game. But it all starts with rooting for teams that are trying to get in to lose, so Nebraska can get that chance at extra practices, because I do think this team deserves it. They deserved to win yesterday. They deserved to win against Maryland. They deserved to win against Michigan State. They deserved to win against Wisconsin, for crying out loud. But they didn't make enough plays down the stretch. They showed heart. There are a lot of times this season where this team could have literally folded and given up. But Matt Rule and this staff did a good job at keeping these kids engaged and had them in position at one point to potentially contend for the Big Ten Western Division come November, because they went undefeated in October. There are a lot of positives here. Yeah, they finished on a 4-game skid. So what? They're still ahead of schedule in compared to other Matt Rule rebuilds. Like, their room to jump next year is nowhere near as big, considering, like, Matt Rule at Baylor and Temple won 1 game in his year ones. The second year, they won 7. It's not that big of a jump to get from 5 to 7, but I think they can be quite a bit better if they can find another quarterback. Or, coach Chubba Purdy up enough to where yeah, you're good enough in certain situations, but we need to coach you to be better in these, which is not turning the ball over in key situations like he did yesterday. After getting a key interception with 30 seconds left on the clock and having a potential to go 20 yards downfield and kicking a game-winning field goal yourself. So my message to all Husker fans here is do not jump off of the ship, because you can see what Matt Rule is trying to build. They are trying to be a tough, gritty football team. A lot of the time we did see that this year. So keep believing, because this team, albeit 5-7, they have a way different feel to them than any of the Frost teams did in the past. What are your thoughts? Because I'm sure you share some of the same thoughts that I do.
I definitely do. I think, first of all, the game, as much as I wish I could have been there in person, was not, but I did get to watch the full game, and it was a solid game. Defense absolutely showed up like they have most of the season, and it ended up being an instance where the defense almost won the game and the offense lost the game, and that has been a trend for the Huskers this season, and honestly the last couple of seasons, where the defense has shown up and the offense has been unable to piece it together. Now, there were different quarterback changes. We saw several different people under helm for quarterback. We saw several different quarterbacks throughout the season. It was kind of up and down. There were a lot of changes throughout the season, but like you said, this was Matt Rule's best first year on a college football team, and we've seen the progression from year 1 to 2 be so great that is a really good sign. The fact that they pieced together 5 wins, that is a really, really good place to be in. Unfortunately, they could not get it done, and the last 4 games, they kind of fell out when we really thought that they would pull through, but they looked really solid overall, and this is the best they've looked in the last 4 to 5 to 6 years. Without a doubt, in my opinion, this is definitely the best they have looked. So even if this really is like the end of their season, I think that this is a great sign, and I think they're on the right track. But I definitely will say that the quarterback situation needs to be figured out, whether that be through the transfer portal, whether that be Chubba Purdy figures it out and gets a full season under helm. Whatever it is, we need a solid and consistent person under quarterback, because that has been one of the biggest issues. Yes, we had Adrian Martinez, who had the talent, but he was not a consistent, reliable quarterback. And, what do we have? We had Tommy Armstrong before him, and then Taylor Martinez before him. So in my personal opinion, every single one of those quarterbacks, well, some of them got us to bowls and even got us to some Big Ten championships. We haven't had a consistent quarterback for the last 10, 15 years. We haven't had a reliable quarterback. We haven't had someone reliable under QB, in my personal opinion. And it shows, because how many conference championships have we won the last 10, 15 years? It goes exactly. We have not had that guy. We need that guy. Chubba Purdy could be that guy, but I don't think we didn't get to see enough of him to know for sure if he is that guy.
I heard something interesting, and it was an interesting question yesterday. What if Chubba Purdy was our quarterback throughout the year? The entire year? Because we saw him. The dude has some swagger with him. He carries that Purdy swag with him. That's something that we've seen his brother Brock carry, and we see what Brock is doing in the NFL. Chubba has some of that same swag. You can see how he carries himself. And we've seen that in his play. He's really fast, and he can spin the football. He can throw it downfield. We saw it on the 66-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Lloyd yesterday when they got down 10-0, which was a beautiful throw. And there is some tremendous upside to Purdy. He's only a sophomore. So he's got a couple more years here to develop. And if he develops, at the right pace, I think he can be the quarterback of the future, at least for the next couple of years for Nebraska. And I think he could carry this offense to at least being an average offense in the league, maybe averaging 30 points or so a game, which if they keep Tony White and they average 30 points on offense, you think their chances are really good at winning a lot of games. So I think if they can get at least to being an average offense, averaging close to 30 points a game, I think they're going to be in a good spot.
I'm with you, bro. No, I'm totally with you. And again, Purdy, had we seen him the whole season, there's just so many what ifs, and it's hard to live with those. But I do think that he very well could be that guy. I think that with a full season and with this offense also being a little bit, more grown and having maybe a little more chemistry and building up, because it takes time. It takes a lot of time. We're not going to waste our breath and talk about Colorado, but we are going to touch on them briefly because that's a big reason that failed. You bring all these new people in, you bring all these players together, you're not going to win and mesh that. Especially, it's not a basketball team where you have 12 to 14 to 15 to 20 at the most guys on a team. A football team is huge. You're not going to bring all these guys together all at once. Matt Rule did a great job. Did we have the same situation as Colorado, bringing all of those recruits in it? No, we didn't have the same situation. But Matt Rule still came in with a lot of guys, some that had been under the Frost era, some that were coming in, didn't know what to expect. Matt Rule did a great job of bringing these guys together in his first year. And it shows in their record because we had some games where we came together as a team and won. We didn't play fantastically on paper, but we came together as a team and won. And that's because Matt Rule brought us together and brought those boys together and brought the team together. And unfortunately could not get it done in those last two matchups. Both of those should have been wins. I mean, I guess actually the last few matchups, but in my opinion, Wisconsin and Iowa both should have been W's on the schedule. But it is all good. It is what it is. The Huskers still look better than they have. And I don't know about you, bro, but I'm still extremely hopeful. And I think that Husker football is officially in a place where it's not been before. And I do think we're going to see those trends continue and just continue to get better. So I'm excited. I think that, again, I'm very confident and very happy. And I think that Matt Rule, Husker fans, even with the record, Husker fans are still happy. That Husker fans are happier with Rule than they ever were with Frost. So it goes to show what he's doing that goes beyond just the record.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of positives, for this Nebraska team going forward. They lost 3 games this year by the score of 13-10. 3 games. They lost to Minnesota 13-10. They lost to Iowa 13-10. They lost to Maryland 13-10. So the whole question this offseason is, what are they going to do to help potentially flip the script from those being 3 losses to those now being 3 wins? It'll be an interesting thing to talk about throughout this offseason for sure. And as always, go Big Red. I'm still going to root for them. I still rep every single day. It doesn't mean it doesn't sting, but they showed some things this year that have not previously were not seen under Frost, and that is toughness and grit and the will to play. So yeah, it'll be cool to see how all this shakes out, through next year, because as I alluded to, the Big Ten just gets tougher next year with USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon joining the league. So they're going to need to do something if they want to be in contention for potential big time bowl game bid or even a Big Ten championship bid. They're going to have to do a lot. Let's transition over to some Husker volleyball talk now. They just picked up their first loss of the year. They got swept against Wisconsin in Madison. The question is, do you think this is going to throw them off? And I don't think so. They already clinched the Big Ten championship for the year. They're sitting at 27-1, 18-1 in conference. In my opinion, now the perfect season isn't, in the cards. So I think it takes a little bit of stress off of their shoulders trying to keep that going. And I don't think it's going to hamper them too much come, tourney play. I do think this team is still really good. I still think they're the top team in the country, even at 27-1. They're the only team, I think, in the top 10 that has only one loss. And it happens to be up against a top 5 Wisconsin team. So my question to you is this. Do you think this will throw them off? Or do you think now that even though they lost, they still got the Big Ten championship clinch, they still got the automatic bid, do you think they'll still be able to kind of find their footing and make it pretty far in this tournament?
I would say definitely. I think that had they dropped a game earlier in the season, it would have been good, but it wouldn't have been as good as this. And what I mean by that is a team that is on a run, that has not lost a game, can absolutely get lazy and can start to play a certain way that will come back to bite them, especially come tournament play. And so the fact that it's coming one of the last games of this regular season, I think that's good. I think it gives them their wake-up call when they need it, because this Husker volleyball team has been a top 20 volleyball program for the last couple of years, but we have not won back-to-back titles. And so for me, picking up that loss now is a good thing. We're still a top 5 team. I believe we're still ranked first, and I do believe that the Huskers will still win the national championship. So for me, I think it's a good thing. I think that getting that wake-up call loss now, you don't want that wake-up call loss in the tournament, because that's it. That once you wake up, then you're done. So this is a good time to get that wake-up call. And Wisconsin is a team that we've gone back and forth with them. Our big win that kind of put us in the spotlight was against them. So they came ready to play, and it was on their home court, and so it was they took advantage of that and they won. But I still think the Huskers are a better volleyball team than Wisconsin, and B, the best volleyball team in the country. So I still got to show some love for Husker volleyball and say that I still think they're going to take care of business once it's time for the tournament.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think John Cook is going to have these women ready to play. They've got one more game this regular season, which they should win. Will set them up pretty nicely. They'll probably still be the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, which I think is going to be huge in terms of tourney drawing and stuff like that, because they'll likely get a pretty good drawing to allow them to make that run, potentially to win another national championship this year. They haven't done that in a couple of years. So, yeah, it'll be definitely fun to watch these ladies, get to work and hopefully pull it off here down the road. That they're a fun team to watch for sure. Let's transition over to another really fun team to watch right now for Nebraska athletics. That would be their basketball team. Their men's basketball team right now is currently sitting at 6-0, and they've gotten some pretty good wins. Lindenwood, they beat Florida A&M. They beat Rider, Stony Brook, Oregon State, and Duquesne. And there are a few of those teams in there that are in the running for the tournament year in and year out, like Duquesne. You got Stony Brook, who's kind of in the running year after year. Ryder's usually in the running. Florida A&M even some years is in the running for the tournament. And Nebraska has taken care of business in each one of these games and blown most of these teams out. What are your thoughts on this Nebraska basketball team, man? Because they definitely look like an exciting team to watch.
They look like the team to watch. I'd say that this Husker basketball team is probably, not even probably, they are the best Husker basketball, let me rephrase that, definitely the best men's team, the best men's Husker basketball team we have seen in a very long time. They are currently second in the Big Ten, and again, it's early, conference play has yet to start, but they have pulled off some impressive wins, and we have not seen a 6-0 start for this Husker team in so long. We have not seen a team with this much momentum, and a lot of it is because of what they've been building. I am a person that, honestly, I was doubting Hoiberg. I was like, I think it might be time to look to what we need to do instead, but he has built something. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over a couple of seasons, but now we're really seeing that body of work come to life, and we're seeing a Nebraska team that's undefeated. And when we look at this Nebraska team, our next big matchup is against Creighton Sunday, December 3rd, and we should still be undefeated by that point, and I think we could have the momentum to pull that off. And then after that, we're looking at our first conference play game against Minnesota, and then we're set. And I think that, honestly, our first, if I'm being honest, our first big game that I think, sitting here right now, is the only game that I'm sitting here not confident in the Huskers having a chance to at least pull a victory off, is against Purdue January 9th. Until January 9th, I think the Huskers at least have an 80% chance to win every single game. And that might be a crazy take, especially for a Husker men's basketball team that has been extremely unsuccessful most of this decade. But looking at those matchups, I think this Husker basketball team, at the most, will maybe drop one game before that January 9th matchup against currently number 2 ranked Purdue. So these boys, I mean, they're on fire. I would have never given that take before this season.
No, absolutely not. I don't think it's too crazy either, because as we all know, Nebraska beat Creighton last year. So they can do it. And I think this Nebraska team has better athletes than they did on the floor last year. And like, they play Cal State Fullerton tomorrow. So you've got, Cal State Fullerton, so that would put them at 7-0. Say they beat Creighton, they're 3-0, or no, 8-0. They play at Minnesota, another winnable matchup on the road. They could be 9-0 going up against Michigan State. Probably a top 15 basketball team, because I think a win over number 8 Creighton propels them into the top 20, being an undefeated team. Then they play Michigan State, who is ranked number 21, starting to find their stride maybe a little bit. They're kind of, they're a tough team, but they're struggling a little bit. They're 3-3. So a winnable team at home. They could be, undefeated, or maybe have one or so losses when they go to Purdue or play Purdue at home. Which, if they play Purdue at home on January 9th, and if they're undefeated or have one loss, do you know all the eyes that are going to be on this team and that game in general? Because we could be talking a top 15, maybe even a top 10 Nebraska basketball team playing up against a number 2 Purdue team in January.
That is something that I don't think we could say until now, but it's very possible.
It's very possible. And at this point in the year, if they can continue playing the way they are, I think they can play themselves into a top-end seed come March. because I do think this is the team that can get them very far in the tournament for the Big Ten. And I think they could possibly play in the Big Ten Conference Championship up against Purdue potentially. So they look good. Like Tominaga, everybody nicknames him the Japanese Steph Curry because he can shoot the three from anywhere on the floor. He's averaging over 20 points a game. And yeah, he's gotten a share of threes, but he's found a way to score inside too. And Mast, another player, is a double-double machine for this Nebraska basketball team right now. So they've got some good athletes, and I don't think it's hard-pressed to saying Nebraska may only lose once before they get to Purdue, which, like you said, is nothing that we could say before the season started because we weren't sure how good this team was going to be. And now we're seeing this team take care of business in these games that they should win. And they've done it. The only game that I could say that they could lose was against Duquesne on Wednesday. And Duquesne ended up, they punched, Nebraska punched right back, and they won by 10 points while scoring almost 90 points in that game, which is pretty big. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see where this team can go because I think this could be the team to finally get Nebraska their tourney win in March.
Agreed. And Nebraska has never really had tournament success in general. Like, we have not had, and this would probably be our best shot. And again, it's early in the season, and injuries can happen, other things can happen, but this team looks good. And Hoiberg has done a great job of building this program back up to where it should be. And I think we're going to see a Husker team in March. And that's crazy, bro. That's huge, man. That's huge for Nebraska, and that's huge for basketball just to see that. So good for good for us. We'll definitely keep covering that as it goes, and we'll have plenty of storylines with Nebraska and just college basketball to cover as the season opens up and unfolds. But moving on to our final segments of this show, we're going to cover just a little bit of NBA talk. Not a lot, but just a little bit. We've got a few things to go over. First, we're going to look at both the East and the West current number twos. The Magic are currently number 2 in the East, and the OKC Thunder are currently second in the West. I don't know about you, but those are not the teams I expected to be second at this point of the season. So my question to you is this, because we've seen teams, no matter what sport it is, no matter what, if it's college, pros, we've seen teams start with great momentum but then fizzle out either early or later on during the season. Between the Magic and the OKC Thunder, do you think that even if they don't stay at second, do you think the Thunder and Magic will remain in the top 4 throughout the season? What are your thoughts? Is this a fluke, or are these teams legit?
That's a kind of a tough question to answer, man. But I think at this point right now, 16 games in the season, I think you can make a case for both of those teams staying where they're at because they're playing some really good basketball right now. The Orlando Magic, who I had pinned as a bottom half team in the East before the season started, are proving me wrong. They're the second seed currently, 1 game back of the Celtics, which is crazy. And then you've got OKC, another team that I pinned kind of toward the bottom in the West, but now they're playing good basketball. They have a really good offense and they're playing good defense. I think we can make a case here that both teams can stay kind of in the mix in that top 5. That's kind of my take on this whole thing. I think they can do that throughout the entire season. What about you?
Well, I will say this. I definitely think that the Magic are capable of staying up in the East. Between the two teams, I think both will definitely remain in playoff contention. I think if both teams stay healthy, and then obviously the Thunder also have some other things going on within their team currently, with a player of theirs that could potentially hinder their lineup. But despite all of that, these are two teams that have the talent and have the depth to stay within the top four in their respective conferences. The question is health, other situations going on specifically for a team like the Thunder, and then just if any other team will get hot. But the Magic and the Thunder both look like top tier teams, and Magic are coming off of a huge win over the Celtics, and the Thunder have had some major wins within the last 2 weeks. So these are two teams that are red hot, and again, barring anything with injuries and a couple of other situations, I think these are two legit teams in both conferences.
I agree. They both are playing really good. I'll give you another team to watch out for. How about the Detroit Pistons, man? They're 2-14. They've lost 13 straight. They are probably the coldest team in the NBA outside of the Spurs right now. So yeah, watch out for the Pistons. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Hey, all I'll say is this. Unfortunately, sometimes those are the teams that will pull off the head-scratching wins against the Lakers. We might have to watch out for them for real, because unfortunately I can see a team like the Lakers dropping and getting them. What would it be? You said they're two and
the Detroit Pistons are 2-14 right now,
hey,
and then the Spurs are 3-13.
You don't want to be that third win. Whoever's that third win for the Pistons, that's a bad look. But hopefully it's not the Lakers. Fingers crossed it's not the Lakers, and I'm sure you're crossing your fingers it's not the Heat either, because that would not be a good look. But moving on to our next segment, we have not really gone over any lists or any top players in the league lists. I don't think we've done any this season yet, but we are going to do one, and we're going to go over our picks for the top 3 point guards in the list. Now, our top 3 current point guard list. Now, what I will say is that this is current. Statistically, there's a list that is majorly goes off of statistics. There's one that you could make an argument. So what I will say is this. You might not agree with our lists, but we definitely want to hear your lists. So make sure you comment your lists in the comments for your top 3 best current point guards, because we want to hear if you agree with us, if you don't agree with us. But we're going to go through them right now and see what we got for our list. Starting at number 3, who is your number 3 point guard in the league right now?
I'm going to go with Luka Doncic. He's playing at a very high level. We've seen him play at a high level with the Mavericks so far, and his efficiency as far as being a point guard is toward the top in the league. And as far as, looking at like the lists and stuff like ESPN puts out, he currently does sit at number 3. So he's looking really good. What about you? Who's your number 3?
Well, my number 3 has got to be Steph Curry, who I believe currently sits outside of the top 3 on ESPN. He's number 4 right now on their list, correct?
Yes, he is number 4.
He's not that top dude that he's been. I mean, he's still in the top 5, and he's not my top guy either. Again, we're not going to get shooting. Oh, absolutely. Best shooting point guard in the league, in my personal opinion. But when we look top to bottom, he's great. He's fantastic. He is harder to guard than people realize. He is a quick player. He makes good decisions. He makes great passes, and he has a good defensive mindset, and he can break a lot of plays up. But again, his biggest asset is his shooting, and I got 2 guys ahead of him for a couple other categories. So he's my number 3, but shout out to Steph Curry, because he's been in that top 5 list consistently for the last almost 10 years now, not quite 10 years, but he's been that dude for a while. So my number 3 has to be Curry. Moving on, who is your number 2?
I'm going to go, and he's currently pinned at number 1 on ESPN, Gilgeous-Alexander for OKC is my number 2. He's at the top in certain statistics, but as far as shooting, he's currently not the best shooting point guard by just a little bit. So he'd be my number 2.
We got the same number 2, bro, because again, for the same exact reasons you just said, he had his breakout season last year, and he is so far continuing that trend. It wasn't a one and done. He is continuing that level of play. That dude can hoop, and what he has done and helped do for that OKC team, the progression that team has seen specifically on the side of the guard is huge. And so shout out to Shai. He has made a huge difference in OKC, and he is definitely one of the best point guards in the league. Obviously, we have him at number 2, so he's definitely moving his way up to the top, and I definitely think we will see him win an MVP award before it's all said and done. I think he'll be that dude is a future MVP without a doubt. But we're up to our number 1 spot, and this is a big one, man. This could make a lot of people mad. So who's your number 1 in the league?
Tyrese Halliburton for Indiana. He's playing really good. We've seen this Indiana Pacer team play really good offense throughout the year. They just dropped 136 points, I think, their last game, which is crazy. But they're playing really good offensive basketball right now. Tyrese Halliburton has a true shooting percentage of 66.4, and his turnover ratio is pretty good at 7.4 as well. So I think right now, it's Tyrese Halliburton. What about you?
Hey, well, you know what? I know we have a couple of confirmed viewers of the show that are Pacers fans, so they're going to be happy with that pick. So you're keeping our viewers happy. So good on you. I will say I'm going a different route. My number 1 point guard in the league right now has to be Luka. And again, Luka on the ESPN list is ranked at 3. 3 is a great spot to have him at on a personal list as well. The reason he's at number 1 for me is what he does on both sides of the basketball. He is pretty defensively balanced, as well as being able to do a lot on the offensive side of the ball. And for me, he's a guard that really mimics Magic in his ability to pass the ball. A lot of his game for me mimics a Magic style player. He can be a little spotty at nights, but for the most part, Luka can just dismantle opposing teams on both sides of the ball. So for me, he's number 1, and I don't want to give too big of a hot take right now, but I do think this is going to be Luka's MVP year. I think he's currently at like 4th or 5th on the list last I checked, but I think he'll end up 1st, and I think he'll end up MVP. So I got to go Luka, but Halliburton is a great pick. And that Pacers team, shout out to the Pacers really quick. They have turned the ship around really fast, and they are now one of the most offensive sound teams in the NBA. And we have not been able to say that for them the last couple of seasons. So shout out to the Pacers, and that's not just because I'm trying to keep the viewers happy. We got to give them some props. That's a team that doesn't get a lot of props. I feel like. So shout out to the Pacers.
Yeah, definitely shout out to the Pacers. They look great on the offensive side of the basketball. They're a little leaky on the defensive side, but you're going to see this team play in a lot of high-scoring matchups because of that, because they can keep pace with a lot of these other higher-scoring basketball teams in the NBA. Should be a fun thing to watch down the road.
Absolutely. No, they'll be a team to watch. I definitely think they can make a big push, and this Pacers team is going to be exciting. And who knows, we might see Halliburton and Shai both in that MVP conversation consistently throughout the season, because they're already up there. And so definitely we can always revisit our list throughout the season. Maybe we'll look at all the positions as we go throughout, but we're moving on to our final topic of the episode, and we're going to look at a little bit of Lakers and LeBron. I try to steer clear of too much of that on this show because I don't want to seem like I'm trying to talk about my team too much, but I feel like we have to cover them for a couple of reasons, and we're going to start by covering a certain player on their team, probably the most well-known Laker, if not player in basketball currently, and that is LeBron James. My question to you is this. Obviously, LeBron is in year 21, and the fact that that dude is able to play the basketball in general, 21 years at that level is incredibly impressive. That's a super long season, and it really never stops with off-season training. Any professional athlete, it really never stops. So LeBron has been extremely impressive, but my question to you is this. So far this season, has LeBron shown us that he is still a top 10 player in the NBA? And then my follow-up question is, moving away from just LeBron, looking at the Lakers, do they need LeBron to win? Is this Lakers team deep enough and well-built enough that they can win without LeBron, or is he that defining piece for this team? What are your thoughts?
Your first question, I think yes, he is definitely that player. We break down his points per game. He's averaging 25.7 points per game, 6.7 assists. A big thing in his game that has really made a big jump is his three-point shooting percentage. He is shooting at a 41.4% clip beyond the arc, which is something that we haven't seen from LeBron a lot in his career, because he's mostly an interior scorer. But the fact that now he is showing that he can shoot the ball beyond the arc is huge. He is also making 57.8% of his field goals throughout the year, which, again, astronomical numbers. And the fact that he's 21 years into his career and he's still putting up these points and stats is incredible. Nothing short of incredible. The answer to your second question is I do think the Lakers need him to win, because I don't think they're quite deep enough yet without him. That's just an honest take. I think right now the Lakers are as good as where LeBron's at. They've got good pieces. They've got Anthony Davis. They got Cam Reddish, Taurean Prince, Jared Van. They got good talent on their team. But I do think LeBron is the biggest piece of that team for sure. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, shout out to LeBron. Doing what he's doing in year 21 is ridiculous. And say what you want. Obviously, the LeBron-Michael Jordan debate will be continuing on even after LeBron is done playing. But LeBron is doing things that not only Michael Jordan didn't do in his later years, no one has done what LeBron has done. And to be the only player to have scored as many points as he has, and to just continue that. I mean, he's going to have 40,000 points, 40 plus thousand. I mean, who knows how many points he's going to have when he retires. LeBron is just going to keep on keeping on as long as he stays healthy. Health is his biggest thing, and that has been the biggest deterrent the last couple of seasons. His health, I will say, we've seen a lot more injuries since he's joined the purple and gold than we've seen with any other team in his career. But that's just with the age, and that's also with the demand the Lakers have put on him, because in order to win basketball games, they have relied on him heavily. That is mainly because Anthony Davis cannot stay healthy. If Anthony Davis could stay healthy, that is supposed to be the guy that is the piece that's the piece that you can't win without. That should be the dude that you cannot win. That should be that piece. But unfortunately, because of injuries and inconsistencies, LeBron has had to be that guy. And it's been good for his stats. It's been good for his career statistic-wise, but it definitely has weighed on him. And I think he almost didn't come back. I truly think that he did weigh out his options in the offseason. And I think the start we've been on is great, but it's going to take more. And currently, even though Anthony Davis is playing great, it appears that LeBron being out there is a vital part to this team's success. And as much as that makes sense because who he is, he's aging. You don't want to limit his minutes. You don't want to limit what he's doing, but you want to use him when it makes sense. And I do worry if Anthony Davis has lingering injury problems, if Vanderbilt has lingering injury problems, if Hachimura has lingering injury problems, even though those aren't his positions entirely, he's going to have to cover. LeBron likes to cover for people that are out. He likes to cover. He likes to be that guy. And so injuries stacking up scares me just a little bit. But the hope is Anthony Davis stays healthy and kind of takes over that role. One more thing I want to say before we close out. Shout out to what you said about his three-point shooting, because I close my eyes every time he shoots a three usually, but this season I'm closing my eyes a little bit less because he's clutch. He's put up clutch shots in clutch moments, and he's shooting his best three-point shooting he has in his career, and I really hope that continues. I don't think he'll probably stay 40 plus throughout the whole season, but maybe he does. Maybe honestly, that would be a testament to what he's trying to do to elongate his game and to keep himself healthy and not, put himself at risk. If he can really improve his three-point shooting, not only is his scoring just going to continue to go up, his longevity is as well. So shout out to LeBron, definitely a top 10 player in the league, and honestly, a crucial part of this Lakers team that it does not look like they can currently win without.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were saying, who knows? He may be able to keep up on the shooting clip, because being able to have that part of your game, not only will it keep you healthy because you're not in the paint trying to get all these contested shots, because all of his shots from three are mostly uncontested. So he's not putting his body at risk as much, which I think is huge. And if he can continue shooting at this clip while averaging the points that he is, he potentially could be up there for the MVP. I don't think that's that crazy. In year 21, he's averaging damn near 26 points per game. He's averaging almost a double-double per game, which is really good. So it'll be interesting to see, can he keep up scoring at the clip that he is? And if he does, where is he going to end up in the MVP voting down the road? Because I think he's definitely going to be up toward the top of a lot of people's list if he can keep this up.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's undoubtedly going to be something to talk about if he can keep it up, especially on the offensive side, because defensively we've seen that break down a little bit. He can still put up some good moments defensively, but he's definitely not the player defensively that he was, especially in Cleveland and Miami, but especially that Cleveland run, he really picked it up defensively. But I will say he can still put up some good blocks, put up some good stops, and he is by far one of the best players in the NBA. And so shout out to him. I like your call on MVP. That would be awesome to see him at least be in the talks for it, especially doing that at year 21.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. We haven't seen a player do it this late in their career. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. You have any finishing thoughts before we close things out?
I just wanted to go over really quickly. A new episode of Purple and Gold Zone will be dropping tomorrow. As we record this episode on Saturday, November 25th, I will be posting a new Purple and Gold Zone episode on Sunday, November 26th. Make sure to check that out. And as always, make sure to check out the other projects on the Yankee and the Brit, including Well Beyond the Arc has returned live. But make sure to check into those projects and check us out. And as always, check us out on Twitter, check us out on TikTok, check us out on our other social media platforms. And you can always hit us up in the comments. Let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover, if there's a top 3, a top 5, anything you guys want, you can always hit us up in the comments about if there's something specific you want us to cover.
Absolutely. As always, we appreciate you guys listening and watching. If you're catching us on Yankee and the Brit, please drop a subscription on their channel as well as ours. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. And if you have any recommendations of what you guys want us to talk about, make sure you leave them in the comments, whether it be on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. Just get a hold of us and we'll try and talk about as many of those things as possible. But as always, we both really appreciate you guys for listening and watching, and we will catch you guys next episode.